Hello everyone and welcome back into Virtue Gaming Live. It has been a minute since I've been on, but I am here, Number 2 Ginger, joined with Moose for the cast, my color caster for tonight. Moose, it's a pleasure to be back with you. How are you tonight?
Oh man, Number 2 Ginger, the last time that we casted, Virtue Gaming Grit brought a game back from like Oblivion in order to win the last series that we played or we casted together. So we're off of that. We're now ready to see if they're going to be able to make playoffs. I'm really excited to be here. Virtue Gaming has been definitely just so phenomenal, not only to me, but to the amateur esports community throughout this entire Winter 22 split. And I'm excited to see Virtue Gaming Grit hopefully make it into the playoffs here of Runeterra Academy.
Yeah, so for all the viewers here, this is week 7, the last week of Runeterra Academy Junior, and both teams coming in at 4-2. So in this group specifically, there are 5 teams right now at 4-2, I believe. 5 teams in the hunt for this last playoff seed. Absolute must-win game for Virtue Gaming Grit here. If they win, they get the playoff spot. If they lose, there's a 50-50 chance they go to a tiebreaker or are just knocked out of playoffs completely, depending on some other matches going on tonight. Absolute Zero, on the other hand, win, they get in for sure. Lose, they have a 75% chance or something of still getting in playoffs regardless of other results. So they're kind of chilling. Yeah. So big pressure on Virtue Gaming Grit here to pick up this dub with a new ADC on their roster, as they have parted ways with 20 Bucks name and now have Shifty on their roster for tonight.
Exactly, you know, that does it's a little bit of a double-edged sword because Shifty hasn't played in for Virtue Gaming Ambition. They haven't played in Runeterra Academy, so they don't know what they're able to bring to the table. That definitely shifts up what kind of compositions Grit can go for, but you also don't have a lot of time actually playing with that ADC and how important it's supposed to be, especially when you're pairing that with Inferno, who is your highest ranked player. You want to be able to have that symmetry going. You want to be able to see them perform really, really well. And so I'm very excited to see what Shifty is going to be able to bring to the table here today. I mean, this is a do or die situation, like you said. There's a ton of, not a ton of scenarios, but a few scenarios that if Virtue Gaming Grit loses, like, they're out. So it is a must-win situation for not only the Virtue Gaming Grit, Absolute Zero, Dorado Gaming, as well as Omega Gaming Unknown. So we'll definitely pay attention to all those games. But in this one right here, Xin Zhao, Taric, Trundle, Bandao, some of Absolute Zero's favorite picks throughout the series or throughout the matches. Lulu, Zilean, Ahri as well, you know, definitely one to target what Falsen's been able to do. And as we take a look at the roster so far, Ashe, Nocturne, Karma, comparatively to Absolute Zero, Hecarim, Twitch, and Morgana. So definitely some good engage for Absolute Zero, but also some decent engage and some decent follow-up engage for Virtue Gaming Grit.
Yeah, both teams are relatively heavily deviating away from what we've seen as the meta so far. Virtue Gaming Grit opting to first pick the Ashe instead of taking the traditional Zeri Jinx. And Absolute Zero, you know, said, you know, they're going to pick an off-meta ADC with Twitch. Now, Ashe has been considered to be pretty strong with the recent nerfs to a lot of the ADCs and her new buff on her ultimate and her W, I believe. But Twitch is one we have not seen for a while. And remember, that can go AD or AP, so it really opens up Absolute Zero to actually pick, you know, double AD solo laners and have some flexibility in their draft as well. The Morgana pick, though, is a bit interesting as it's traditionally a losing matchup against Karma, so I wonder if that's maybe going to get flexed to a solo lane.
Yeah, very interesting to see Absolute Zero here go for the Twitch. I mean, there is that very, like, minimal chance, but there is a chance that it's that roaming Twitch that could just be super powerful here. Probably not going to see it, but definitely something that can come in here. Arctic for Absolute Zero is probably their best rated player. One of the best rated top laners in Runeterra Academy Junior, so I think that Absolute Zero trying to play around that. Virtue Gaming Grit trying to get rid of some of the high priority champions that he likes to go with. The Darius, the Mordekaiser especially, and I'm excited to see what he decides to go for, as I'm assuming he will be R5. So Absolute Zero's got to pick up their mid laner. They've got to pick up their top laner here. Curious to then see what Falsen is going to try to go for, and then what top laner Terra wants to play. It could, you know, because he's playing up against Arctic, who is not the carry on the team, but definitely somebody that puts in a lot of pressure. It's interesting to see what they're going to decide to pick up. And Absolute Zero going with that Galio, definitely still flexible here for Absolute.
Yeah, still a lot of flex. One thing noticing from Absolute's comp, though, is a lack of damage in these first 4 picks. It's really only the Twitch. You know, the Hecarim's gonna have damage early, but he will fall off, and Morgana Galio again. Same thing, damage early, but will start falling off the scaling. So this Twitch is your big late game win condition, and the comp feels like it's being drafted around that carry. So Virtual Gaming Grit maybe looking for a comp to kind of shut that down. Anivia is going to be the lock-in for Falson, a very traditional control mage player. He has so many games on that Anivia and so well played on them. Ornn going to be up in that top side for Terra as well to lock down. It gives some of that extra CC that Virtual Gaming Grit was lacking.
Yeah, I mean, I think that they needed to get some CC, but they also needed some frontline to be able to protect the Anivia Ashe, and so now you have that in both of them, but it is heavily exploitable in the early game, and this is now an opportunity to see what Arctic and Absolute Zero want to go for in the top lane. They are taking all the time that they can to go for it, and it's going to be the Kayle. But the chat was talking about it. Arctic Kayle from Asian Bet was saying that Arctic Kayle is incoming, and it's one of those champions that Arctic does have a ton of experience on. It's also going to be something that's going to scale up, and because you pick up the Ornn, you're not really going to get punished for having to scale up in the early game. So Absolute Zero now looking to utilize the late game power of the Twitch and the Kayle to get themselves to that first victory here in this best of 3. And so now it's up to the Twitch and the Morgana in the bottom lane, along with the Hecarim, or I would say especially this Hecarim coming through to be able to get all these lanes off on the right foot.
Yeah, I'm kind of vibing with Absolute Zero's game plan here. Just going completely for the late game win con of Twitch Kayle. It's basically like we hit level 16, we hit 30 minutes, the game's over. And they have a good way of protecting their weak lanes. You know, Kayle up without Ornn. No team really is going to want to play towards the Ornn, so it's pretty hard to actually pressure the Kayle. Even though Ornn actually has a decent 1v1 against Kayle in the early game, it still shouldn't be too hard for Arctic to survive the one out. And in the bot lane, you know, Twitch Morgana is going to get absolutely demolished by Ashe Karma. Like, there's no question about that. But having the early game presence of Hecarim Galio to be able to just permanently hover that bot side, it feels a lot stronger than Nocturne and Anivia in that regard. So I think Absolute Zero drafted pretty decently well around their weak points. However, Virtual Gaming Grit, you know, going back, Ashe Karma, that lane is such a strong 2v2. If they could play through that properly and get this Twitch behind, it just feels like there's a lot of win con just immediately gone from Zero's roster.
And on top of that, they also have ways to expose where the Twitch is going to be able to have the vision, not only from the Ashe E, but then also to be able to, you know, have some maneuverability with the volley from the Ashe, with the Q from the Karma, to be able to maybe find where Twitch is at when he is in his camouflage.
Hold up here. It looks like it's going to be a Morgana mid and a Galio support.
Okay. So Galio now, I mean, I guess it also makes sense. Like, you know, now you have a little bit more of a front line here for the Twitch, but it does, I think, limit what the Twitch can do, because now, like, I feel like the Galio wants to be able to roam up to the mid lane. So now Twitch, I think, is going to have a little bit of a harder time to be able to go in for these, like, ganks. And so that's kind of telling me that I don't think that going towards bot lane is going to be the play here. I think that it's going to be trying to get this Morgana, get Lele onto a really strong position early on and just let the Twitch kind of run to his own devices, because that's just not a winning lane. I just don't foresee the Galio being able to get the taunt into the Karma Ashe. It's going to be really tough for them to find it, but I think that it's a little bit easier to get a Dark Binding, to be able to get the Devastating Charge onto the Anivia, get that revive early on, and then potentially capitalize upon the earlier weaknesses that Anivia has. I could be wrong, though. Absolute Zero does still have a couple of avenues in the early game, but I definitely like having the Morgana now in the mid lane does change it up a little bit.
Yeah, I think getting Morgana out of that, you know, hard losing lane with Ashe Karma. Karma is traditionally a counter pick into Morgana, so I did immediately point out it was a bit weird getting that pick in there. So it makes sense they were looking for the flex. I think the one thing that Grit is going to have to be very, very careful for is actually just tracking the Hecarim, since Nocturne is going to want to power farm towards 6, and even then his ganks, his counter ganks aren't going to be that strong compared to Hecarim. So assuming Ashe Karma has, you know, complete prio and are pushing up, they really got to, you know, be wise when they push up, because even though Galio isn't going to have a good time engaging the Ashe Karma, all he really needs is one flash taunt with Hecarim charging right behind, and there's no, either Ashe or Karma are going to die. They are very immobile carries. Grit has everything they need, but they need to be smart about it, right? And Absolute Zero can very easily punish these mistakes we happen to see so much more commonly in, you know, these high plat, low diamond leagues.
Exactly, and that, that brings up another point here, is now the Born is definitely somewhat of an X factor here, because you have a lot of good initiation from Absolute Zero to get things started. You got the Unstoppable Onslaught into the heroic entrance, into the Chains of Corruption, to be able to then layer on that CC. But you brought up a good point. This is a high platinum game. These players are going to have skill, but they're not going to be 100% first slice 100% of the time. And if the Unstoppable Onslaught misses for whatever reason, Ornn is then able to initiate with his Call of the Forge guy, get a massive knock-up onto a Hecarim that is going to probably be out of position, and there's not going to be much of a way for, I think, the Kayle to get there in time. And if the Twitch reveals himself, I think that Nocturne then, using the Paranoia, will be able to get to that backline and just obliterate him quickly. So it's going to take a lot of precision from Absolute Zero to be able to make it happen, especially in these later team fights. Virtue Gaming Grit, though, with the opportunity to also make a couple of errors and misplays as they go in for their counter initiation. So, definitely going to be a big test of skill, a lot of nerves, and a lot riding on this game. I mean, for both Absolute Zero and Virtue Gaming Grit, this is, playoffs start this week. You have to win here to guarantee your spot into the playoffs, so it's definitely like a wild card matchup. So really, really important for all these players to perform at their best, and I'm really excited to see a really strong and exciting best of 3 series.
Yeah, well, you said it best. This is make or break for both teams. Nerves are here, stakes are high. We are going to take a quick break while we wait for the spectator delay to kick in. Don't go anywhere. Game 1 of the night in this best of 3, Virtue Gaming Grit versus Absolute Zero. Welcome back, everyone, from that short break. If you're just tuning in, I am number 2 Ginger, joined by Moose tonight on the cast. Virtue Gaming Grit versus Absolute Zero into game 1 of the night on the Rift. Moose, we talked about how hype of a matchup this is, but going into game 1, how do you think both teams feel right now?
There's definitely some excitement. There's definitely a little bit of nerves. I was able to talk with Arctic a little earlier in the day, just talking about how they're feeling. I mean, they're a team that is not sponsored by any, amateur organization. They're just a group of friends that wanted to play in some tournament play together, and they are, really enjoying the time that they have, and they're looking to just show what they can do and hopefully keep their fun tournament round alive, though. But Made in China Mo.
Well, Taunt's not going to land. Binding's not going to land either. There's going to be some gold in Frozen Inferno's pocket from that item he has there, but nothing. VG looking to come in hot, and they're not going to find anything.
Hey, you know what? I'll take the extra gold. I'll take the gold. Take a little bit of item, or not items, but a little bit of just extra monies in your pockets for being able to get it. Before we go any further, though, I do wanna go and give some I guess. I was given permission to give some grief over to the ADC for Absolute Zero. Arctic, who's the lead, was saying that I thought his name was Apple for a year, and he just learned today when I asked him what his pronunciation was that it's not Apple, it's Ow Pull, not Apple, and it's, I don't know what the difference is. I don't know why he put his name as that, but we had to give him a little bit of grief for that.
That sounds very fun to say multiple times. I will pull. I'm sure I will run over that a million times as well. Don't you worry. That does look like Apple until you pointed it out. So thank you very much. But I mean, rune choices across the board here look pretty standard. If anything, the Isonator on Nocturne taking Lethal Tempo. I'm not sure if is that what you take on Nocturne right now? Is it Lethal or is it Conqueror?
As a Nocturne aficionado, somebody who's played Nocturne for a little while, I've always gone Lethal Tempo just because of, it's lethal and it's tempo. Once you're able to initiate with your Paranoia, it becomes really, really impactful.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. It makes sense. I wasn't sure. I'm not a Nocturne aficionado like you. So I gotta deflect over to you.
I gotta play Nocturne because, when Talia is dog crap like she is now, I have to play other things. And Nocturne isn't as good as he was in Season 11, but he's still really fun to play. I mean, Paranoia is such an X-Factor ultimate that can just put in a lot of work. And on top of that, you also have 2 teleports as well. And so, back in Season 11, when Nocturne was used pretty effectively, you get the Paranoia, then you're able to use teleports. And Arctic and Lele aren't able to do that. So once we get into, 14 minutes and onwards, those Unleashed teleports can become very effective.
Yeah. We're seeing across the board, Virtua Gaming getting CS lead in pretty much every lane as expected. On the jungle side, though, both junglers in the bot lane. I believe the Isonator actually reverse cleared this game. So Absolute Zero might expect him to be topside right now, where he's actually hovering in the bot lane. It looks like Hecarim's not going to go for anything crazy as the bot lane for Absolute Zero does the push. So no big deal coming out of there, but it was something to note out as a little aggressive play coming in the bot side now. Taunt coming up onto Frozen Inferno, going really fast. Stepping forward to Shifty, looking for the play on Aopal. Not going to find it, has to flash away. Flash forward now coming out of the bot lane. Here's the Isonator. Nguyen is not nearby, so Isonator's just going to run this one down onto Aopal. Knockup coming through from Made in China. Going to take some damage as Frozen Inferno stepping forward. Here comes the Fear onto Aopal. No sums left, no kill coming through. There it is, first blood. Over to the Isonator. Second kill comes through the Shifty and a quick 2-0 start for Virtua Gaming.
Nice play there from Shifty. Flashing, or not flashing in, but just moving forward to give a little bit more just like excitement towards Aopal and Made to try to be able to pick up that kill. But then it was the bait, Aopal and Made taking it, and Isonator's able to come through. Finds the Fear onto Aopal, denies any chance of escape, and is able to get 3 Summoner spells out of the process. So that just worked out perfectly in the early game for Virtua Gaming Grid.
Yeah, definitely rough. I mean, look at the first back difference on he carries, too. You have, close play by Terra there, but you have, boots and a dagger for Aopal, but Shifty already has that Noon Quiver. That's absolutely insane, just power difference, and it's only going to snowball from here.
Exactly, and now we get to really, I think, see some of the issues, I would say, with having a Galio and a Twitch. Like, Galio wants to be able to go in, right? He wants to be able to find that great taunt, that great knock-up, and to be able to get that consistent damage. Aopal doesn't really, he can't really burst anything down. He's going to get a couple of shots in and then maybe go for the expunge, but he's not going to be able to be super effective with that damage until he gets at least to Spray and Pay and has that level 6, and then it's a little bit of a different story. But here in the early game, it's definitely a lot more awkward than it was. You're seeing that awkwardness play out in that 2 kills advantage here for Virtua Gaming Grid. And with that being said, now Shifty is going to have a really good time here, and that could maybe result in some roams for Frozen Inferno.
Yeah, I would definitely like to see Frozen Inferno move around the map, punish the side of Absolute Zero for picking, these scaling picks. And that's something we've seen a lot this season. The scaling picks are becoming more prevalent with objective bounties, with, just even champion bounties. Feeling a bit stronger along with Unleashed Teleport. It's very easy to get away with these scaling picks, especially if a team can't punish them. Early Dragon going to go over to Absolute Zero with some nice rotations. They're going to pick that one up for themselves and be pretty happy with that reward.
Yeah, I think that's about as good as you're going to get, especially with the disastrous early start.
Ooh.
Lele, though.
Flash already burned from Lele. Didn't have enough mana for the Black Shield. Nice punish from Fulson.
Yep, and now Terra. Terra's now level 6, can be able to get the knockup.
Ooh. Terra didn't want to go for the Call of the Forge God there. Arctic was still holding on to his ultimate, and now poking down Terra nicely. And we're now starting to see Kayle slowly take over this lane.
I'm really curious to see, as Isonator very close to reaching level 6, where he decides to go with his Paranoia. Flash is not up for Aopal, so if he does find a great Paranoia pick, that could be huge, but it also could be a bait because Kai is in the bottom lane as well. That could be a 3v3 that they're waiting for.
Yeah, there goes Made in China. Flashes forward right onto Shifty. Remember, no flash on Shifty, but here comes the Paranoia coming out from Nocturne, looking for the play. He's going to dive in now onto King Nguyen. Has no sums, can't get away. Wasn't level 6 yet. Then the flash forward straight onto Aopal. No hesitation at all. Double kill out for Isinator. Can this be a triple kill? It is! 3 kills going over to the jungler of Virtue Gaming Grit with a fantastic counter gank.
I don't know what Kai and the side of Absolute Zero was thinking there. Not having level 6 on a Hecarim means a no unstoppable onslaught. Had they had that, that might have been a different story. Had, Isinator initiated with that Paranoia first, they might have been able to go in for a great counter initiation, but instead they get a little too excited. They're pushing too far forward. They didn't think that Isinator would be bottom side, and they're able to capitalize upon that. That is a very, very scary Nocturne, 4-0-1 before 8 minutes.
Yeah, you feel like the Isinator is just kind of lined up now to take over this game, just looking at his items. He's going for the Stridebreaker build, which is, the more common build we've been seeing lately. So he will be a bit on the tankier side, won't necessarily one-shot everyone. But 0-4 for the bot lane of Absolute Zero is not where you want to be this early into the game. And it's not a good look so far.
Unfortunately not. And not only that, you're also seeing the Ionian Boots of Lucidity as well. Like, he's building to be able to get Paranoia as low of a cooldown as possible. That tells me that maybe he might still go for some cooldown reduction in his second item. He can go for potentially a Black Cleaver. Could also, decide to just go maybe more tanks. Derek's Gauge, not the most effective option, but something that he can go for. And he doesn't need blue buff because he has so much cooldown reduction and mana regen already. He gives that blue buff over to False, and that's, I think, expected as well. And things in the early game are looking really, really good here for Virtue Gaming Grit. On top of these kills, you've now got stacking tiers on both Terra and Falson. That's going to mean that your mid game is just going to be so much more stronger now that you're able to get those great tier items potentially upgraded sooner rather than later. And so I'm excited to see now what the next play is for Isinator. Paranoia is back up. Does he continue to bully down in the bottom lane, or does he get some help over to another lane here?
Yeah, and we can ask the same question for Absolute Zero. What is their actual play for now? This is the point where Hecarim is not going to feel very good because you already got outpaced now, tempoed by a scaling jungler, and now you have no lanes to play for. Like, you can't really play for your Morgana mid. You can, but it's not going to work out very well. Playing for the Kayle feels very bad against this full tank Ornn, and you could try to brute force bot lane, but you keep having the threat of counter gank from this Paranoia when your bot lane is already as useless as a dead fish for a while. It just... You're in this really bad situation as a jungler that you don't really know what to do. Speaking of bad situation as a jungler, Ash Arrow is going to come through to prevent Aopal from actually doing anything there, and it is just an absolute slaughter from Virtue Gaming Grit. Isinator just walks straight into the jungle of King Nguyen, and now Falson flashing over, looking for the Made in China, is going to block the dash away, gonna look for the finish. Here comes the bone plating, but the wall comes through from Falson, not letting Made in China run away, and kill after kill, 8-0 with a 5,000 gold lead at 10 minutes for Virtue Gaming Grit.
Just exploiting such the late game heavy composition that Absolute Zeros goes for. Their carries are built towards getting to a 30-35 minute game and being even with their opponents, right? Twitch, Kayle, they're some of the strongest late game carries that you can go for, but you're not able to really be effective at all in the first 10-15 minutes, and you just have to give up so much. And the fact that now you've got a snowball on Isinator, 5-0-1, you finally are now getting some kills onto Falson as well, who is really CSing quite nicely. You're able to put yourself in such a great position. 0-6-0 for Aopal and Made. That's not what you want to see here for the side of Absolute Zero, especially since they built so late game heavy.
Yeah, it's definitely not looking too good. There is a fat shutdown on the Isinator, so if he overextends and Absolute Zero is able to get that onto Kayle or Aopal, it will feel pretty nice. But it looks like Dragon is actually going to be started up from Absolute Zero here. They want to fight this. Astro comes out and locks down Nguyen, and Nguyen's just going to instantly get popped by Falson. There comes the ultimate from Made in China, but I don't think that is very advisable, as he is going to go down to Shifty now. Another 2 kills picked up for Virtue Gaming Grit as they took Dragon on top of that.
You have to go for it. You have to try to go for these plays, send the cavalry down, but unfortunately, you're just way too far behind. Paranoia is effectively on a minute cooldown at this point, if not quite a minute, but definitely very close to it. You're able to just use it on command And now another play topside.
Oh, the all-in from Terra's going to take Ahri down to 1 HP. Even after the call of the Forge God, he was able to drop his own ultimate, but a solo kill in the top side from Terra on a fantastic play.
Everyone is getting involved in this definitely slaughter that Virtua Gaming Grit is going for so far. I mean, this is, at this point, like, if this is a solo queue matchup, you're at that thing at 15. Like, this is just... Like, I don't foresee the win condition right now for Absolute Zero. It's going to take way too long for them to get it. Look at Falson, already Lele in trouble.
So much damage. That one spear, nope, wasn't enough with the Black Shield. But yeah, I mean, Aopal and Maiden Chen actually can't even lane bot. Like, they're forced out immediately. That bot tower is going to go down very, very soon. I'm surprised the Isn't hasn't picked up Rift Herald already, speaking of. But even across the board, there's just CS leads everywhere. 13 minutes in the game, we're at 7K, and this is feeling like a wrap.
Unfortunately so. Like, Absolute Zero just needs to go back to the drawing board here, and we have to go back to draft. Like they pick up the Twitch so early on that you really are forced to now build around it. And that was the plan from the very beginning. Like, the Morgana comes through, and you know that it's going to be Ash Karma. The Morgana's going to go mid lane, but
here comes the paranoia right onto Aopal. This is bullying, guys. This isn't fair. Don't do this to him. Main China's going to flash away. Isnator's going to try to chase him down. I don't think he's going to have enough to finish him off. Just a tower dive right after the tower was killed for the bot lane of Virtua Gaming. Grit Falson going to bully Lele in the mid lane as Kayn Gwyn comes by, sits there, and, you know, realizes he can't do too much.
Unfortunately, no. And, like, now at this point, like, knowing that Paranoia was used bot side, Kai, I think, needs to maybe have tried to go for a Rift Herald here. You got priority in the top lane. Now you can potentially go for the Rift Herald. You know that the Nocturne's not going to be there in time, but instead you get a little bit of vision, you try to hover for a gank potentially onto Lele, and you don't get anything out of it. And now you're, again, you know, just giving more of an advantage over to Virtua Gaming Grit. 14.5 minutes into the game, the teleports are now unleashed. You've got the Caulfield's Warhammer, even more cooldown reduction for Isn't. That Paranoia is just continuing to be effective here, and you have to wonder, like, you know, where is any sort of win condition? I'm telling you that I don't think that there is one now. You're almost 10K in the lead for Virtua Gaming Grit at the 14-minute mark. That's about as perfect of a game as you're going to get. And yeah, I mean, maybe Absolute Zero is able to get a kill on their hands, but at this point, I think keep your mental in check and look to potentially bounce back in game 2.
Yeah, I mean, going back to when you mentioned you have to go back to draft, I mean, really, where is the winning lane for Absolute Zero? You're 100% reliant on Kayn Gwyn on this Hecarim getting a lane ahead and snowballing off of that and having the pressure that Hecarim does. But he just never found the angle. You know, when he was bot side, his bot lane was crashing into tower. When he was you know, very rarely top side, and Lele just was not able to find any angles on Falson. So when you get outplayed by the Isnator in this macro game, as Aopal is not having a very good time, when you get outplayed in this macro game by Virtua Gaming, it just feels so bad because none of your lanes are really in a position, champion versus champion, to actually punish or win anything.
And considering that this is such a, you know, pivotal match for both of these teams, to go for a composition that really they have not played earlier on in juniors, at least looking at the stat lines that we have, like, I don't see any Twitch games. There's really no, like, there are a couple of Galio games for Made in China, but there's no Morgana games for Lele. Really not a lot of Hecarim games. We see Xin Zhao, we see the Graves, we see J4. Like, you're going for a lot of champions that you haven't normally played, and that's part of the issue here, is that you're really going so far out of your comfort zone in game 1 that you're getting slaughtered by the comfort picks that you've been given over Virtua Gaming Grit.
Yeah, maybe we gotta do some. We gotta check over Virtua Gaming's PayPal account. Maybe that's how we're paying you out tonight. We'll have to double check. Just, you know, you're right. It is a bit weird that Absolute Zero is just first timing all these champions unless they've been, you know, scrimming a lot and prepping them. But there's only so much scrims you could do in the matter of 1 week before your game. So it definitely is a bit off-putting. Maybe Absolute Zero is just like feels like they're pretty much guaranteed playoffs no matter what they do, even though like technically they're not. They just they're guaranteed at least a tiebreaker, right? So there's no way they're eliminated off how the series goes. So maybe they're just relaxing a bit. But it is nice to see for Virtue Gaming at least. I'm sure they're very nervous coming into this game that they're having a great game one, and assuming this game rides out within the next 5-10 minutes, they'll go in with a big momentum swing to game two.
Exactly, and you said it correctly. Like Absolute Zero is not guaranteed a spot in the playoffs. There are definitely scenarios in which they don't make it, and being able to get a win here would definitely be really good. And considering that Absolute Zero has had a pretty effective season, they're the only team that was able to beat who'd they beat? They beat Team Shadow Spectre, the only team to beat them. Like they're probably going to be 6-1. Team Shadow Spectre is the only team at this are coming into week 7 to be guaranteed a playoff spot. Absolute Zero was able to beat them, but they've fallen short to some teams that you didn't really expect. They fell short to a 3-4 team coming into weeks, or a 3-2 team coming into week 7. In Dingalings, they had some tough plays against Doge, and now Nien's in trouble.
Yeah, the entire jungle right now is just owned by Virtue Gaming. They're just bleeding them dry at this point. Wouldn't be surprised if Virtue Gaming lines up for the Baron on Spawn and then tries to close out the game off that. But right. Yeah, it kind of feels like, at this point, it's not much to talk about the game. It's talking about where can Absolute Zero get better. Looking at the previous drafts, I think is the starting point, figuring out, back to comfort, back to what are these drafts they had that beat the best teams, and how can they pull it off against VG.
Exactly. Like, I think that, Kayle is definitely something that can be really, really well. We could potentially be seeing a Hail Mary play. No, not yet. But yeah, like, going back to the Trundle that we've seen 6 times for Arctic, it did get banned out, but, you can go for maybe picking Arctic's pick a little bit earlier, picking up a Mordekaiser, maybe trying to force either the Trundle ban or get something that's going to be able to give Arctic a point. Finding something that's going to be effective for Lele, Aopal, and Maid, definitely trying to be able to be as effective as they can, going for maybe a different play there, but it all starts in draft, and that's something that I really want to see as we move into game 2 and Brush potentially.
Oh, there comes the arrow into the Paranoia. Flash is immediately coming out the wall. Ended up hurting VG more than it helps as they blocked off his own team members, but Falsa will take up the kill on Kid Nguyen. Fortunately, there are no objectives really up right now to take, so they take the kills while they can find it. It feels like VG is just looking to have some fun, and Absolute Zero is not letting them have fun because they're not stepping into their own jungle. But here comes the push onto the mid lane towers, maybe an inhibitor. Nope. Yeah, it looks like Absolute Zero is just going to kind of concede what they can. There comes the knockup out from Terra onto Maiden China. Maiden China is going to go down, not able to survive all of that burst, even through the taunt. And there comes all the damage. Arctic looking to actually maybe clean this up. He's getting a lot of damage out. He takes down Falsen, takes down Izinator. Izinator going down to 1 HP, and the Agnivia came out as well. A lot of gold onto Arctic there. 3 kills came out. Here comes King Nguyen. Is going to get stunned by Falsa. nicely placed stun. And now Izinator's back up here to try to help him. The wall comes out to make sure Nguyen can't step forward. And the last auto maybe coming through. No, not enough mana for Izinator to finish that one off. And they will take the inhibitor after a bit of a chaotic fight with the 10,000 gold lead and some shutdowns thrown away.
Hey, that is a full Rift Maker for Arctic at 20 minutes into the game. You take what you can get. You got a shutdown on to Terra. You got a shutdown onto Shifty, which is the big, money maker shutdown. You would have loved to have been able to take down Falsen and Izinator, but not quite enough damage at the moment. You are now at 2 items on this Kayle level 13. It isn't quite at full power just yet, but you do at least, get some money over to your win condition. It's not Aopal at this point. Like, he's 1-6-1. He's going to be way, way too long for him to come back, and at least Arctic has been able to push. He's been able to get CS, and he's in a decent position if he's able to find a 1v1 here that could potentially result in a little bit of a comeback. Now, it is a 9,000 gold lead. You're more than 10% of your gold lead is in favor of Virtue Gaming Grid. I mean, according to Freak, like, in the LCS at least, like, that's like the rule of law. If your gold lead is more than 10% of the gold in the game, then you're you're basically guaranteed the win. So I think Virtue Gaming Grid is feeling that. And while you did get a little bit there for Absolute Zero, you're now having to deal with Inhibitor being down. Soul Point now for Virtue Gaming Grid. Like the stack or the odds are stacked against you so much here in game 1.
Yeah, surprised the Virtue Gaming Grid didn't just straight go for the Baron. Having the Anivia with the blue buff on your team kind of means that Baron just dies. Even Ashe absolutely melts that. But Arctic feeling himself a bit, getting those 2 items. He's level 13, so there's a ways to go until he can even hit that level 16 point. And Kinegwin is going to be able to use the Onslaught Shrouds to get away, but there comes a big knockup from Terra onto 2. Gonna take down 1, 2, but Aopal's doing a lot of damage here. He's able to free hit. He might be behind, but a free hitting Twitch still can hurt. Arctic now fighting off Falson in the 1v1, looking pretty good for him. But Falson's able to kite that one away and take out Arctic before he can even ult himself. So much damage, too quick to react. That is the skill showing over there on Anivia, and most of Absolute Zero is dead. So Virtue Gaming is going to take over this Baron for themselves.
Yeah, 3 items on Anivia. That is definitely terrifying, especially now that you have Seraph's Embrace as well. You're not going to survive if you get hit by a full combo Anivia. Arctic needed to go for the invulnerability sooner rather than later. Lele not going to be able to take the steal, although it could have happened. That's going to be Falson padding the stats a little bit further for his near perfect game, 6-0 and 4, now wearing purple.
11 CS a minute, too, for Falson. Definitely feeling himself in this game quite a bit. Having a good time. Like I said in Champ Select, Anivia is his pick. He loves Anivia. It's very commonly banned against him, actually. So I'm sure he was very happy to see it left open, especially when Galio was picked. Just kind of a free lane for Anivia to sit back and farm. So he's having a good time. Level 15. That's where Arctic wishes he would be right now, getting close to that 16 power spike. Virtue Gaming now with Baron, it's really just on them to figure out how to properly macro and slowly destroy the base of Absolute Zero and look to end relatively soon.
And they're going to try something here.
Oh, nice Ashe arrow coming in. Big snipe from Shifty going to secure that kill. There's the Ashe buffs coming through, get a little bit faster of the arrow. Makes it much harder to dodge, and now Virtue Gaming going to push in the top side.
Exactly, and that's the power of also the Paranoia, is even though you might have wards, which you didn't really have for the side of Absolute Zero, you just are able to land those arrows so easily. Like you said, the buffs increasing the attack speed, or not the attack speed, but the movement speed of the arrow, the longer that it's active, means that you're able to get in to those long-range stuns, which is what we saw there. Aopal's going to drop the Spray Empire, but doesn't quite get anything, and now, it is the question of how are they going to be able to close this game out? Yeah,
I mean, VG just kind of standing around with no wave here, looking like they're a bit lost. They should have probably Falson sitting in the mid lane, just getting those waves shoved in, pressuring, and then have the remaining 3 pressuring the top side. So, not the cleanest Baron push we've seen before, but that is Spray and Pray from Aopal down, so the wave clear is a bit lost now from our Absolute Zero. As here comes the engage from Kinegwin, looking for the Onslaught Shrouds. Is going to hit a few, burn some flashes. There's Terra with a re-engage, call the Forge God. Arrow comes out as well, double knockup. But here comes Arctic. He's not touched yet. However, I don't think it matters as the altar is burned on Aopal. He's going to go down to just Lele and Arctic. Terra's running forward. Isnator over the wall. There's the flash forward, and Terra's going to take down Arctic as Frozen Inferno takes down the last man standing in Lele to secure a 25-minute victory in Game 1 for Virtue Gaming Grit.
Yep, it was never in doubt after the early plays from Isnator, Shifty, and Inferno in the bot lane. It is going to be a very quick and very, very strong Game 1 here for Virtue Gaming Grit. And as you stated earlier, Falson kind of spatting, or kind of adding to his stats a little bit. He was coming into Game 1, the 4th highest CS per minute in the league at 8.8 or 8.2, and now is going to be a little bit higher than that, trying to be able to pad those stats.
Yeah, Falson, I'm sure, had a great time that game. I think all of VG had a great time that game. You can kind of tell by the end of it, they weren't really super focused on where they should be and what they should be doing. They kind of just wanted to fight, and I don't blame them. If I was that far ahead, I would just want to fight too. But, for Absolute Zero, you got to hope that their mentals aren't completely out of it and that they're looking forward to Game 2. Games like that can be really, really, really rough if you're not in the right mindset coming forward. So I'm hoping to see still a competitive game.
Yeah, I think, I'm curious to see if the trend for Absolute Zero is going to remain the same. I mean, coming into week 7, all of Absolute Zero games, win or lose, ended in 2. They get it done quickly, either win or lose. And if they want to be able to have a chance to win this series, they've got to break that streak and go to game 3. With that being said, though, I mean, looking back at their games, it's very decisive one way or the other, and this one was decisively towards Virtue Gaming Grit. They got everything that they wanted out of that one and more, and it's going to be up to game number 2 here to see if Virtue Gaming Grit can confirm their playoff spot.
Yep, it's definitely going to be an exciting game too. We are going to take a quick break while teams load back in on to Champ Select, get ready for draft. Don't go anywhere. We are in for an exciting game too. Virtue Gaming Grit versus Absolute Zero. Welcome back, everyone, from that very short break. As soon as I hopped into Champ Select, they were ready to draft. Teams are ready to go. So we're good to go. Number 2 Jitter once again back with Moose on the cast. Draft is going. Absolute Zero immediately taking out some new bans from Virtue Gaming. We're going to see a new lineup from Virtue Gaming as Nocturne and Karma already taken out. Moose, what do you know more about Absolute Zero than me? You did a lot more research. What do you think they should change up?
I think first off, try to get something in onto Arctic and try to be able to go for that because he is such an impactful player. And Arctic was very not shy about it, but he was definitely humble, saying, it is a team effort, but because it is a team effort, you also have to consider your part about it. If you're going to be the quarterback of your team, you've got to make sure that you are feeling good. And so I would expect with Xin Zhao and the Taric bans out, get something for Arctic that he's going to be able to carry off of. I really believe that the Trundle's going to get banned out. I would have said the Trundle would have been a great first pickup for them because that's something that both Arctic and Kai can play, but play more towards the early game, play towards maybe going for a play topside. The J4 is going to definitely help out with that. Go for something that you can definitely carry off topside with, get those Rift Arrows, and maybe find a play there.
Yeah, Absolute Zero prioritizing the Jarvan over the Hecarim this game. Maybe just for comfort. Also taking away one of his power picks. So that could factor into that decision, as the Izonator is a very famous Jarvan player around the leagues here. So taking that away from him and making Virtue Gaming Grit not want to pick any immobile carries in the backline as well might be a factor into that. As I say that though, they decide Virtue Gaming locks in Zilean, most likely going into Frozen Inferno's hands. He is a very recognized Zilean player. We've seen it a million times in this league. He loves playing it. He talks about it all the time. Viego is also going to be the lock-in traditional counter to Jarvan. So solid 2-pick start of the draft for Grit.
And looking at the lineup here, Virtue Gaming Grit obviously going to pick up the Zilean. It was something that was banned out in Game 1 against Frozen Inferno. Frozen Inferno, the highest rated player on Virtue Gaming Grit's roster, so expected to see some of those bans come through. You got the Karma banned out, but an interesting ban, I would say, is the Ahri. That is something that we could potentially see on the side of Lele. He has a lot of games with Ahri here in Runeterra Academy. That's something that he could potentially play, and to take away from the side of Paulson and Virtue Gaming Grit, Now, maybe they're just worried about maybe Falston getting it early on, but you saw that he played super well in the Anivia. I expect him to be able to go for something like that again, but maybe mix it up a little bit. We could potentially see, because we've got the Viego, we've got the Zilean, maybe going for, I don't know, Lissandra, Vigar is still available. So, I mean, there's definitely a lot of options. And Absolute Zero, they are going for the Mordekaiser, but they're picking up the Galio once again.
Yeah, 3 Juggernauts effectively on the side from Absolute Zero here. So very melee, tanky heavy. Ezreal is going to be picked up from Virtua Gaming Grit. Not surprising. You kind of need something to survive all of that. Just immediate engage, a way to get away from it. And they only really have, initial engage. Galio, Mordekaiser, and Jarvan really have 1 to 2 abilities that gap close on you. And if you can get away from those and live, you generally have a good time, and Ezreal does very well with that. You mentioned Vigar. I'm actually surprised Vigar wasn't picked up there on the R3. I feel like it's probably going to be banned here, and Vigar always does well into melee champions. Yeah, and there's the ban for it as well. So I think that, might have been a bit of a mistrap. I expect Ezreal would have been open in R4 anyway. I don't expect that to be banned. So curious what Virtua Gaming decides to go for mid instead of that.
Yeah, I mean, you looking at Lele's roster as they hover the Ornn, Lele can go with the Lissandra. We've seen it go with the Orianna. We've also seen the Vex played. So I'm curious to see if that is going to come through. And we're seeing another new champ, I would say, for Aopel here in the bottom lane, the Kai'Sa. I don't remember seeing, let me just double check that really quick. I don't remember seeing a lot of Kai'Sa games from Aopel. Yeah, no played Kai'Sa games and no bans against Kai'Sa here for Absolute Zero. So they're going to pick that up. They're going to go with the Lux, another pick that we have not seen from the side of Absolute Zero. So a very interesting, fresh draft here. I'm curious to see how that bottom lane plays out.
Yeah, I mean, Kai'Sa is, again, one of those picks that is popping back in the meta. She was, hovering hard meta for a while. She was, just below the best picks. But with a lot of the best picks being nerfed, like Aphelios, Jinx, all receiving, and Zeri receiving nerfs, she has popped back up, especially the AP variant. So I'm curious to see what she's going to go. She's going to go for the AD version. She's going to go for the AP poke. Virtua Gaming Grit going with the Azir as the last pick. I don't know if we've actually seen Falston's Azir. I know he plays it. That's for sure. So nothing, too shocking. That champion is probably one of the hardest champions in the game to actually pull off, especially against something easy like Jarvan, Galio, Ward that can just sit on your face. So I'm super excited to see what Falston can actually do with this champion.
Emperor's Divide, I mean, another wall champion just continuing to build borders around around Absolute Zero here for Falston, and I'm curious to see what that does actually mean for him in terms of his CS and his ability to be able to scale up into the mid and into the late game. He's going to be up. I assume that this is going to be a Lux mid. Galio is going to go back down to the support role, something that Made in China has a lot of consistency with, but I mean, looking at Lele's list, let me double check that again. Yeah,
I'll give you an answer Lux right now. It's going to be Lux mid.
Yeah, it's going to be Lux mid. So there are a couple of Lux games. Pardon me. There are a couple of Lux games here for Lele, so that does make a little bit more sense. And didn't play too terribly on those Lux games. Had, in the 2 games that we saw them play, 35 assists in 13 deaths. So definitely was playing more towards the farming kind of passive role, not getting a lot of kills. So really expecting then to see Arctic and Aopel step up here. They really, really need to step up.
Yeah, I mean, I think Lux honestly should do pretty fine into Azir. They should match the range very well. Lux gets a lot of lethal potential around the level 6 to 10 mark. As an avid Lux player myself, I personally think this matchup is fine for Lux, especially since Azir really can't match much of the wave clear once you get Lost Chapter. I think this draft is a lot better for Absolute Zero than last game. I think there's a lot more win cons. I think Mordekaiser, Kai'Sa, Galio, even Lux all have decent winnable lanes that you can abuse, and Virtua Gaming, on the same end, doesn't have the early game shutdown lane they had like Ashe Karma. Looking at Ornn, Azir, and Ezreal Zilean, all of them seem like more scaly, play safe lanes. Even Viego is more of a counter gank champion. So now Absolute Zero has the proactivity in their comp to actually make plays and maybe control the game.
Looking at what we've got here, Absolute Zero, you said it correctly. They have a little bit more early game the earlier that the game is, I feel like they have a little bit more potential to really put in a lot of work. The J4 is such a impactful early game jungler that can help snowball a lot of different lanes here for Absolute Zero, so it's going to be up to Kai to be able to make that happen. But as the longer that the game goes on, the more I fear that Absolute Zero is going to have to handle the just massive damage and sustainability that Grit is going to have. You've got 2, potentially 3 tiers that are going to be online for Virtua Gaming Grit, one from the Ezreal, one from the Ornn. Maybe we see a tier coming in from the Azir. I highly doubt it, but it could happen. But I mean, you now have so much mid-game power for Virtua Gaming Grid, and then you just are able to elevate yourself into a late-game powerhouse in the Azir that if Absolute Zero wants to win this one, they have to shut down Virtua Gaming Grid and deny them the chance to get to the mid-game at either an even point or, terribly speaking, Virtua Gaming Grid in the lead come mid-game.
Yeah, right now, I'm looking at Absolute Zero has a conflict. So you see 4 squishes inside of Virtua Gaming Grid. You have Kai'Sa Lux. You want that Kai'Sa to go full AP, full poke. That feels so hard for Virtua Gaming Grid to actually play against. Now, the conflict is that if you have your Kai'Sa going full AP, you have Galio, Mordekaiser, Kai'Sa Lux. So it's just going to be full MR in Virtua Gaming Grid. Your only AD is Jarvan. But if your Kai'Sa goes AD, it just feels so bad because you're against so many ranged champions that you really can't gap close on. So what do you do here? Do you just accept that you're going to have 4 AP, go for the full poke with Kai'Sa Lux and make Virtua Gaming's life, a bit harder? Or do you try to get more of the hybrid build going and maybe diversify your damage?
I still think that poke would probably be, I think, sufficient here because you want to be able to get fights that you want. And because of the composition that Absolute Zero has picked up, they don't really have a lot of initiation tools. It's very conditional. You have to get a Loosen Binding from the Lux. You have to get a good flag and drag from the J4. And once J4 initiates, it's go time. You don't get out of that if you're J4, if you're Kai in these team fights. And so I think that the only way that you really do win is if you're able to get that poke in, whittle down the backline. Best case scenario is you whittle them down so much that Zilean has to use Chrono Shift early in the fight so that you then are able to move in with your Final Spark, with your Death Realm, get a high value target like the Azir or something out of there so you're just able to whittle them down in the Death Realm, get those stats in so that you then are able to finish the job. So I think poke is the play. Once you get them poked down, initiate with the conditional initiation that you have and then finish the job.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see, and we're going to have to take a quick break while we wait to see what they decide to do. We are going to wait for the spectator delay kick in. Should only be a few minutes. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with game 2 of the night.
So hold our heads up high and beat the drums to what we love. Risk the fall, oh, we have felt it all come crashing down from far above. Stars are rising, countless worlds colliding. Only one will take it all. Can we bring to fall the giants? Can we make the final call? We are the ones to
And welcome back, everyone, from that short break again. Back into game 2, Absolute Zero versus Virtua Gaming Grid. I am number 2 Ginger, joined by Moose again for the cast. Looking to hop into game 2. Absolute Zero looking to come back from a pretty rough game 1 start, Moose. What's their plan going into this?
Early game needs to be strong. They have to be able to find the good ganks. They have to be able to find those early kills, and they need to make it happen sooner rather than later. If you get to the mid game, if you get to the 14-15 minute mark and you're still in an even gold advantage, that is when the pendulum starts to shift over to Virtue Gaming Grid's favor. So you need to be really effective in the early game. Kai needs to be effective. Arctic and Lele need to just be able to stay alive so that you are able to get to that mid game with a lead.
Yeah, I mean, my eyes are on Arctic again this game. I feel like he has a good matchup in the Mordekaiser versus Ornn. I feel like if he gets ahead, it can be very hard for Virtue Gaming Grit to actually deal with if he's able to get on flanks, if he's able to flash on he carries, force some people to build QSS. Granted, it feels very good for Virtue Gaming Grit to actually build QSS this game just because of all the AP threats. So that kind of sucks for Arctic. But regardless, he showed in game 1 that he was solid up on the top side. I'm curious to see if he could punish on this nice pick. Oh, we might see some cheese though in the bot lane. Frozen Inferno's gonna get caught out. He's gonna get brought so low, and that's instant first blood for Aopal. So much damage from that early game Kai'Sa. A big misplay from Frozen Inferno, face checking that, and a nice start for Absolute Zero.
Exactly what you need. First blood, 400 gold over to Aopal, and you only use one summoner spell. Had Frozen Inferno not died there, I was going to bring it up. Maiden China and Opal are going for those early kills. Ignite and Exhaust, no heal. It is all in gameplay from Absolute Zero here in the bottom lane.
Yeah, not what you want to see from Virtue Gaming Grit, and that's what happens when you don't control those bot bushes, right? That's why you see in so many high elo LCS Academy matches, like there's always contest early for those bot lane bushes, and that's the exact reason why one play like that can decide the entirety of bot lane. Aopal already was able to pick up a longsword, just an extra 10 ED on top of his insane damage in that early game Kai'Sa. Really good start. I'm excited to see that they still have some life in them. They're still making these proactive plays.
Yeah, I mean, like, personally, like, I think for bottom lane, Virtue Gaming Grid is pretty bad. Lele in trouble, though.
Gonna flash away. Isneir's gonna look for the sun flashes over the light binding. Here's Nguyen, looking for the knockup. Is gonna land it. Do they have enough damage? Falson flashes forward. Lele's gonna try to path away. One more auto would do it, and he's gonna get it. Falson takes down Lele, and now Nguyen in an awful position. Isneir's gonna take that one down, and a 2-for-0 right back in the mid lane for Virtue Gaming Grit.
So close to being able to pull that one off. Lele, just wrong place, wrong time, did not utilize their ward in the right side of the rift, going to be caught out by that gank. And that's a little bit of a misplay there. You know, Lele recognizing that top side was going to be where Nguyen or Kai was at, drop the ward on the top river because you know that you're going to be able to have that support from your jungler in the bot side. So that's my personal opinion there. It maybe it just is just a 50-50, but at the end of the day, that is a good 2 kills here for Virtue Gaming Grit.
Yep, back up on to the right foot, getting the Iznator ahead, which has been Virtue Gaming's win con for so many games. Just Izzo taking over the map, getting ahead, getting kills for himself, and transitioning a lead to his carries. We've seen it over and over again how well he's able to manage the early game, and the games they lose are usually games where he messes up the early game when he falls behind. So a good start for Iznator is a good start for Virtue Gaming Grit.
Yeah, interesting to see Arctic. He decides to drop the ward in the Tri-Brush and does not go back. Even though we had the lane push forward, he was worried he maybe just wants to CS another lane, wait to finish off this cannon minion, and then teleport back. But he doesn't have that extra little bit of advantage that he had, and now maybe going to not have that same pushing power here as we move into the next couple of waves. We'll see if he does get punished for that, because Ornn can just continuously buy items. He buys his Tear of the Goddess now and has that available to him, and not only that, he can go back and has teleports. So we'll see what that means as we move into the 5-minute mark. Dragon is spawning in 6 seconds, and could potentially be Terra looking to be able to get a play here.
Yeah, maybe baiting an Arctic a little bit too far. Gets a nice knock-up and gonna force the flash out. You definitely take that for Virtue Gaming. Very, very well played from Terra there. And that is going to be Arctic having to back off, burn his TP as well. And we take those.
Yeah, I mean, what else did you? I mean, what did you get from staying there? Is my question for Arctic. Is you should have just, I think, at that point, you know, you have the lane push forward, go back. You don't have to use your teleport. Then or you do use the teleport to be able to get the cannon minion. But now you come back to that lane with a little bit more of a punch. You're still not going back yet if you're Arctic, and that's going to be feeling really rough here. He's going to have to try to push the wave up before he goes back, and that's going to mean even further behind the using that first teleport, and it's definitely going to be something that we're going to be looking at top side of the Rift, because I was talking about that maybe being a potential win condition here, pushing towards Arctic being so strong.
Oh, there comes the Emperor's Divide in from Falson right into a flashless Lily. Izanator was waiting in the mist, and that is the last Spear Stab going to take him out. A great play from Falson coming through, proving us right that he is a great player of Azir. Now, all in coming from Terra onto Arctic. There comes out the Death Realm. I think that canceled actually the brittle auto from Terra, so no kill threat going to come through. Arctic didn't want the fight though, and now Izanator just came right into the top side. Knockup was a little bit mistimed, but it doesn't matter as Izanator is going to take down that kill, and a slew of plays coming through in Vici's favor.
Yeah, that, I mean, not what I wanted to see here from Arctic. You're going to get punished for staying in lane too long, and I get it. You want to be able to grab that Leeching Leer. That's something that he was able to get, but you give that 300 gold over to Izanator, who's now on a killing spree. You played so well in Game 1, almost flawless on that Nocturne, and is now, trying to be able to replicate that here in Game 2. It denies all of that early power that Aopal was able to bring to the table from that first blood against Frozen Infernal, because the rest of the Rift is going towards Grit's favor.
Yeah, Grit in another commanding position this game, only at 1.2k, but, considering their comp where you feel like they should be scaling rather than having an early game lead, definitely going to feel pretty bad on the side of Absolute Zero. Izanator, having so much damage already towards his build. Even Falson with a 17 CS lead, 1-0-2. He's commanding this mid lane as well. And Lux also feels very bad when she falls behind. Just can't wave clear, can't match the pressure that Falson has. So you're starting to, again, lose all these win cons that Absolute Zero has, and you're grasping at straws.
And where is Kai in all of this? He's 0-1-0. He's still behind in CS against Izanator. He picks up the first dragon, but one gank, one counter gank in mid lane against Lele where he falls, but he has not done any other objective, ganking yet for any of his lanes. Shifty and Frozen Inferno have been free pushing bottom lane and have been in a pretty gankable position for a good majority of the game, and we're still not seeing Nguyen really try to take control of that. Let's see if something happens here, though.
Frozen Inferno getting a bit aggressive. Taunt is going to miss, though, and so is the dash. That means Made in China is a bit caught out here. Heartbreak is going to come down to follow the flash. Let's Made in China going down. Now Aopal is the next target. He still has the flash available, but immediately gets taunted in the middle of his own ultimate. Stun is going to miss from Izanator, but this whole time, Kayn Nguyen's going solo. Shut down over for Aopal. Gets the last auto out now. Falson is here following Lele down, going to push Lele towards his own team members and force Lele's flash out. Shifty is not able to get enough damage down with the Arcane Shift into the Mystic Shot, and that is going to be, I believe, a 2-for-1 in the end towards VG's favor.
Yeah, you still get a shutdown over to Aopal, though. That is a good 600 gold over from Izanator. Blade of the Rune King was unlocked for that, and Shifty with double buffs is able to just continue to push forward. Arctic, though, looking for the Rift Herald. Yeah,
Arctic is going to try to take down the Rift Herald. Who does it go to? I believe it went to Arctic. I couldn't tell for sure. Death Realm might come out here, is not, and Arctic is going to take down the Rift Herald for himself. Has Shelly in his back pocket, and he'll say thank you very much to Terra.
That was very close, so Terra could have definitely stolen that away had he not been careful there, but is able to pick up that Rift Herald, sees that both junglers are in the bottom lane, and decides, hey, you know what, I might as well try to go for it, and I'll take that. That's going to be an extra, potentially 320 gold in his pocket, as Falson just continues to skirt and slide away from Lele and Kai, once again, not being in too much trouble. Now we're looking at, 10 minutes into the game. You've got a 2,000 gold lead for Virtue Gaming Grit. You're feeling strong as you've got both of your tiers now nicely stacking. What is the response here for Absolute Zero? I think that it has to be now going for this next Drake. 46 seconds remaining. You can, maybe then roam Arctic down with that Rift Herald, get it towards mid lane, and maybe use that as a potential option to then get that second dragon. Or then, push forward and try to use that Rift Herald effectively. It's going to be up to Arctic to find a good play out of it.
Yeah, you know, speaking of win cons again, Aopal is going for the full AD Kaisa build. She's going towards, it looks like that Kraken Slayer already has the Dirk in her inventory as well for that Q upgrade. So we aren't going to see this massive poke comp coming out from Absolute Zero. You know, we talked about this in pregame. We don't think it's very optimal to do that. But Aopal has all the gold right now for Absolute Zero. And this AD build does spike a lot earlier than the AP build. Generally needs 2 items to really do anything. So this early dragon fight is going to be good for Absolute Zero if they're able to get in decent positioning. They have all 5 down here. Terra's still in the top lane with no TP. He TP'd mid earlier. So this dragon shouldn't go over to the side of Absolute Zero, but it looks like Virtue Gaming wants to fight this. Isnator getting caught out here. A lot of damage comes through. Zilean ulti comes through as well, so he is resurrecting. That's an important cooldown already brought down. There comes the Emperor's Divide. Not going to do much. Heartbreaker comes out, but Aopal takes down the Isnator. Now Falson's able to take down someone in the backline. Shifty is going to get put in the Death Realm. Arctic does so much damage to this Ezreal. Shifty goes over the wall, but I don't think it matters yet. He's trapped over there. Falson now flashes forward. That's not where you want to be, my man. Stuck inside the Cataclysm. Going to get slammed down. Arctic with another shutdown. Now Terra caught out. Doesn't have anywhere to go. He's going to be able to flash over the wall, but right into Aopal's waiting hands. The slam comes in for Arctic and a triple kill with a clean ace coming out from Absolute Zero, turning the game on its head.
What was Virtue Gaming Grit thinking there? They knew that Arctic was in the mid lane, or at least they knew that something was up. Given the fact that Aopal is so far in the lead, I don't think that should have been a continuous play that they tried to make. And that was a play that they wanted to go for. And now they're getting so much out of that. Rift Herald's going to be dropped. First 2 dragons going over to Absolute Zero. That's going to be a massive influx of gold. And what was a 2,000 gold lead for Virtue Gaming Grid has now resulted in a 1,000 gold lead for Absolute Zero. That's going to be Riftmaker for Arctic. And things are definitely looking up in Game 2.
Yeah, it's kind of funny how much that was foreshadowed right as I was talking about how strong Aopal was and how they have Arctic moving. Very, very interesting. Isnator now getting super aggressive for this blue buff is going to go down. Frozen Inferno actually flashes over the wall to get the resurrect, and it's going to work out. Isnator is able to heartbreak over the wall. Somehow, Isnator gets away with absolute theft on that blue buff, but at the cost of Frozen Inferno's flash and the exhaust.
The cojones on Isnator there. That was, I mean, that's a taunt in and of itself, saying, "Come get me, fam." I'm really I'm shook of it a little bit there. Isnator really wanted that blue buff, and hey, they got it. But at what cost? We'll see if that flash comes back to bite Frozen Inferno later.
Yeah, I mean, the problem for Absolute Zero right now is Lele is as strong as support right now. It's 13 minutes in the game, and she doesn't even have a lost chapter. That's insane. 75 CS, less CS than her jungler. So you're effectively playing a 4v5 right now as Absolute Zero. Now, granted, Lux is still useful for the CC, and she still has a lot of inherent burst damage. She just picked up some more items herself. She'll have that loot in soon. But, you know, Falson is looking really strong in these fights. It's really just making sure Arctic can't pop off, and we're going to have to see if VG can find a way to stop that, because if fights do get close range like they did last time, VG is very squishy, and Arctic kind of just pops anyone he's able to get inside the Death Realm.
Exactly. You know, and talking to Arctic earlier about how the strategy works for Absolute Zero is this seems to be fairly common. Lele, you know, like I stated earlier, didn't really have a lot of kills on the Lux games that they had and plays very low econ. You know, is comfortable with not getting a lot of CS, not getting a lot of kills, and is just looking to be as effective as they can be, playing as that pseudo support role in the mid lane. And so I'm curious to see if that is going to be able to work out here, because like you stated, you know, it is definitely a question mark. You know, just because you are going a little bit more of a low econ build doesn't mean that you shouldn't be able to CS effectively. And to be 40 CS behind an Azir, who has really a tough time CSing in the early game, is definitely rough.
Yeah, I mean, but at the same time, it's also on Falson to be able to abuse that lead and show up with it. You know, last fight, he flashed into a Cataclysm, so that's not a good way of abusing that lead. So it is at the same time putting the pressure on Virtue Gaming's mid laner, which, granted, Falson is expected to be able to handle that pressure. He is oftentimes considered one of the star players of Virtue Gaming, seeing right there, immediately burning Lele's flash with a very nice Shurima shuffle over into the Emperor's Divide. So already another big cooldown coming out left and right. Next dragon spawning in a minute. It is Cloud Soul, so not super big prio maybe for either team, but it would be nice for Absolute Zero to pick up that soul, as Aopal might be getting a bit cheeky here. Is going to charge forward, going to ulti forward on to Shifty, and my god, Shifty got absolutely obliterated.
The early power of the AD Kaisa coming into effect there, being able to get that nice use of the Acathian Rain to get massive plasma damage, and able to go now 5-0-3. We talked about how the early game power is. Hold that thought, though. Maybe Made in China in trouble.
Oh, Isonator's not going to go forward now. Made in China is very tanky right now, and Isonator went for a very, very selfish build of the Blade of the Ruined King. So every member of Virtue Gaming is very squishy. Even Terra is still relatively squishy, only sitting on components for his Sunfire Cape, presumably. So really, Absolute Zero can kind of melt anyone who comes forward, and it's going to be a tough time for Virtue Gaming to actually fight anything, as their power spike is significantly delayed.
Yeah, and you're seeing that. Oh my god, the Acathian Rain continuing to be so much
fast break.
power there.
Oh. Close, but Arctic here now contesting the Shelly. Isonator is stuck at the wall. Is going to have to Heartbreaker over. And it's going to be Shelly probably taken by Absolute Zero, as Virtue Gaming just being pushed out. Isonator is sitting on the Blast Plant. Does he go forward? Arctic tried to shoot him back over if he did go. But that is now going to be Reptile picked up for Absolute Zero. And at the same time, Kinugan is doing Dragon all on his own some. So double objectives picked up across the board. You know, Shifty is picking up this bot lane, but he's going to be flanked by Kinugan, and I don't know if he could actually win that. Falson going aggressive on Aopal is going to burn the Flash. Can he finish him, though? Flashes forward, he gets the kill, and that's a huge shutdown going over to Falson in the mid lane.
And once again, though, Arctic is getting the Rift Herald. Like, you're looking at it once again as Arctic being this hyper carry win condition for the Absolute Zero squad. That is a big shutdown, though. I'm very curious as to why Aopal wanted to be in the mid lane there. Maybe was trying to get the tower, but Falson able to find the Emperor's Divide and gets, I think, what is that? You know, almost 800 gold out of that shutdown. He's going to be able to get right back on track gold-wise. He's going to be way in the lead, and that's really the question here is, you know, where is Falson in comparison to Aopal, in comparison to Arctic? And as long as he maintains consistent with them, Virtue Gaming Grid is still in a good position. They're only 1,000 gold behind, and now you have to wonder is we've gotten everything in Virtue or in Absolute Zero's favor in the first 20 minutes of the game. 3 Drakes and 2 Rift Heralds is as perfect of an early game as you're going to get. Is it enough for them to carry themselves into the mid-late game to deny the late game power of Virtue Gaming Grid?
Yeah, I mean, we have seen in the past Virtue Gaming struggle a bit with the macro in the mid to late game. That's been one of their biggest weak points. So we're going to have to see if Absolute Zero, you know, in a commanding position can actually, you know, abuse that a bit, taking advantage from themselves. Aopal on the 2 item spike here has the Collector already finished. So you know if anyone is isolated, he's going to be looking for that one-shot damage. Pretty crazy on himself. You know, all of Virtue Gaming, not really on any item spike specifically. The strongest one you have to say is Falson, but even him, he on that Azir is very squishy. His Frozen Inferno gets absolutely destroyed. Final Spark's gonna come through and lands as Frozen Inferno didn't pop the ulti on himself, thought he was able to walk that one out, and now Shelly popped in the mid lane. They're gonna get 2 towers here.
Exactly, 2 towers, and now the question is, can Absolute Zero break their record of it being just a 2-game series in every single one of their matches so far? We're gonna get the hat trick out of Shelly here. 3 headbutts, or I guess 2 headbutts there, but 3 towers almost completed for the side of Absolute Zero in the mid lane is pretty phenomenal. You're continuing to keep this game in your favor tempo-wise. You're taking jungle camps, and with 2.5 minutes remaining until the Cloud Soul spawns, Virtue Gaming Grid is going to have a big question answered here. Will they decide to contest this Drake, or do they give Cloud Soul over to their enemies?
Yeah, I mean, it's a hard decision to make. You know, 20 minutes in, Terra still not on his first item. Isonator still building towards his Divine Sunderer. And even Shifty doesn't have his tier fully stacked yet. And it's a big question as to will he actually have it done in 2 minutes. So it's pretty hard to say. Sum's also down for Falson and Frozen Inferno. Whereas pretty much all of Absolute Zero has their flashes up minus Aopal. So it's going to be a hard fight regardless. And, you know, you have to say if you're VG, it might be okay to give Cloud Soul, it's not that big a deal, and maybe fight for a very early Elder.
Exactly. I mean, I think that might be a
oh, wow.
strong
Arctic just all-inning onto Terra here. Here's Kinugan and Lele going to be right here when Terra pops out. Terra is all alone up here. Flag and Drag misses somehow. Arctic is going to take out the kill. Now, Opal getting called out, though. Heartbreaker comes out. Here comes the ultimate from Galio, but I don't think it's going to matter as Isnay was able to switch over to Aopa. Now, he's the strong Kaisa, going to be able to flash away in a big pick for Virtue Gaming in trade on the bot side onto Aopal.
Trading up for Virtue Gaming Grit Aopal off of the Rift means that it's going to be less time for them to CS and to get even more power as we move into this dragon spawning in a minute. Because you are in the lead, though, Absolute Zero does have a couple of options here. They're picking up that tower in the top lane that is all external structures now down. They could decide to seed this Cloud Drake and maybe go for a Baron play here, as Isinator maybe looking to find Made in China.
Oh, gets the stun onto Made in China. Made in China's going to try to run this one out. He gets the taunt out of Isinator. Remember, no Heartbreaker, but I think he has enough damage. Is going to be able to finish that one off. And Made in China gets punished for trying to ward inside his own jungle. Now it's going to be a 5v4 for this dragon fight. If Absolute Zero still wants it, Virtue Gaming sitting inside of Absolute's jungle. What does Absolute do here? What is the call? Pings are coming out in the mid lane. Maybe trying to push down mid, but Virtue Gaming doesn't want to allow it. They want to fight it. They know what's going on now. Straight to the Baron. Here comes Call of the Forge God from Terra. Gonna knock up onto one. Lele flashes away. TP now coming out. Here is Arctic, but he has no Death Realm. He's just 1v3 right now. He just used Death Realm. He has to flash away, and now Isinator's on the hunt, looking for the finish. Terra going pretty low. No finishing kills gonna come through. Flashes were burned. Now Terra going super aggressive. Gonna find Falson. Flashes away. A big shutdown coming in. There's Final Spark coming through. Not gonna land on anyone. Falson in the front line. Shifty flashes forward. Terra's able to take down one. Made in China is back. Arctic is going to get able to take down one in the Death Realm. He has no flash. It's super hard for him to get on any of the members left of Virtue Gaming, but he's so strong here. He does have the stats of Azir. Most of the members of Absolute Zero are down. Virtue Gaming pondering around. They have the 3 up, but can they actually do anything against this duo? Shifty stepping forward, looking for the poke. Dragon still is spawned. Frozen Inferno and Terra going to look forward. Dragon gonna be started up by Virtue Gaming here, maybe?
I don't think so. I don't know that Virtue Gaming Grid has the power to do it. 13 seconds remaining until the stats that Arctic has are down. Shifty's just trying to be able to get some HP, and they're just trying to make sure that Arctic doesn't take the rift or doesn't take the dragon for himself. So no one being able to get the soul, no one being able to get the dragon just yet, but Virtue Gaming Grid are going to take the resources to pick this one up.
Yeah, Falson has TP, and they used best to extend to that. Final Spark came out to make it a little bit close, but Isinator with a solid smite. Plays a lot of Smite Arena to make sure he picks that one up. So after a absolute chaos of a fight, we do have Virtue Gaming Grit, the goal lead again, effectively dead even. And this game, 23 minutes in, feels like it can go either way.
I think that was a little bit of miscommunication there in that fight from Absolute Zero. Arctic doesn't have Death Realm, teleports into the mid lane, even though the rest of Absolute Zero had a way out into the top side of the river. They could have gotten away, but instead Arctic teleports in, and you definitely felt it. Do they commit? Do they just let Arctic die? But, you know, he was able to get out of that one and is one of the only surviving members along with Made. But it's Kai and Lele that are killed for their efforts. That was a 5v4 battle that Absolute Zero did not have to fight for, and that is an avenue back into this game. You have to start to worry here if you are Absolute Zero. Virtue Gaming Grit is now only 500 gold behind, and now that pendulum swip that I was talking about in draft has now indeed begun. Muramana is complete for Shifty. You've got Divine Sundra online for Isinator. You denied the Cloud Soul and the opportunity for Absolute Zero to maybe go for a Baron, and we're 24 minutes into the game. I don't know if Absolute Zero has enough gas left in the tank to finish the job.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to have to see. Arctic is still absolutely unleashed. There are no QSSs on the side of Virtue Gaming still, so all these Death Realms will be on good targets. Falson himself looking pretty strong. Same with Shifty. The items are starting to come through. Fimbulwinter on Terra, so he is now a beefy boy. Mid lane is going to be the push here as Falson's in the top lane with no TP, but the wave is just going to be popped as Absolute Zero really has no way of actually sieging. So just a bit of a dance in the mid lane. Nothing going to happen. Arctic going to run into Falson. Going to run at him very, very quickly. not going to be able to find a kill. Has that extra movement speed from the Cloud Dragon. Here comes the final spark on the Frozen Inferno. One slap from Arctic takes down so much of his HP. Frozen Inferno's going to flash away. Big ulti coming out from Terra is not going to land, as I believe he got put in the death round. Aopel takes down Frozen Inferno. There comes the ultimate from Made in China. Shifty takes down to Gwyn, and a big Emperor's Divide comes out in the Falson, but nearly gets popped from Aopel. Now 1v2ing in the backline versus Shifty, and Falson going to go down eventually. Here comes the big bad Arctic on to the Isonator, going to put the Heartbreaker forward. Hits the blast plant away, but Shifty is looking for the finish, is going to find the shutdown, and in the end, a 4-for-1 going in the favor of Virtue Gaming. Great, another absolutely chaotic fight.
And it looked so good at the beginning for Zero. They find the early Chrono Break or Chrono Shift away from Frozen Inferno. They do pick up that kill, but no one actually dying in the Death Realm. The power of the Death Realm is you're able to eliminate somebody from the fight, and you decide to put it onto Terra, who already dropped the Call of the Forge God. You at least got the Brittle proc, and you got the slow onto people, or onto the opponents into that short corridor, and you're able to then just lock everyone down. Falson with an amazing Emperor's Divide, Aopel having to defensively use Killer Instinct to get out of Virtue Gaming Grit's base, and it was just such a split fight. Isonator was able to get the backline using that Blade of the Ruined King to take down Lele, take down Made, and it ends up just being a slaughter. Virtue Gaming Grit is now commanding in this game, and it is up to them to continue to keep this momentum going. They've got Baron buff. We saw it last time that, well, they did have Baron, they didn't really get a lot out of it, and now they have another really big test here. How are they going to be able to use Baron effectively with a minute remaining until Cloud spawns?
Yeah, I mean, you said it. The game is turning in Virtue Gaming's favor. They have QSS on the Isonator and Shifty. They're no longer ultimate targets. Ornaments are coming out. Terra is level 15, already upgraded False, and you can imagine Shifty is the next one. Actually, I just lied. He doesn't have a mythic item. He is not the next target. You can imagine the Isonator is the next target for the Ornn upgrade. So these extra golds, it's a 3k gold lead for Virtue Gaming Grit, but 3 ornaments in the game is going to make that more like a 4 or 5k gold lead. Baron as well stats, 6k gold lead. So right now, Virtue Gaming, very, very strong in a commanding position to take this dragon and hopefully siege down some towers.
I don't think that Absolute Zero contests this Drake. I think you go for trying to maybe get these side lanes taken care of, maybe try to push forward towards that mid lane tower. And I think that Virtue Gaming Grit recognizing that, deciding, hey, we're going to leave False in near the mid lane. I don't think that this is a fight that Absolute Zero can take. I think that it's one that they might have to, considering that we are in the later stages of the game. And with Dragon started in about 2 seconds, let's see how it plays out.
Yeah, Virtue Gaming looking aggressive here. I mean, all 3 targets, False and Shifty and the Isonator, are pretty much safe from Arctic at this point. So Arctic gonna have a really bad time. Immediately gets chunked out by Shifty and False in this range. So much to deal with. Terra with the Call Forge God. Arctic already down. There goes Aopel next. It's just an absolute slaughter for Virtue Gaming. There goes Made in China, right, flying into his death. A 3-for-0 so far, and VG says, screw the dragon. We're going to end the game. We want to end this series and secure our spot in the playoffs. Granted, I don't think they can quite yet, but they are excited. Isonator going to go back for the dragon on his own while VG pushes down the base.
The ants go marching one by one. Hurrah, hurrah. Absolute Zero going in one at a time.
Emperor's
Divide
by False and hits 2 members. Gwyn is able to get out of that one, able to survive barely, but a massive play by False. And, he hasn't really done any super great highlight reels this game, but he has been such a rock in the mid lane and finally got his time to shine, shutting down Lele in this game, making sure he's not a factor, being a rock in the backline on this Azir, showing his worth to the team.
Getting everything that they want out of that play, and that was a fight that Absolute Zero did not necessarily have to take. When you've got Baron up, when you already know that your opponent has river control, there's no reason to try to go in for a fight that you're just going to inevitably lose. The options for you to go in for any initiation are so low because you don't have that poke that you would have necessarily had Aopel decided to go for the Muramana Nashor's Tooth build. Going for this full lethality means that you are committed to these all-in plays, And when you don't have vision or river control, you're just lining up to be lambs to the slaughter. And Virtue Gaming Grit are just capitalizing upon these just misplays from Absolute Zero and the length of the game getting to a critical point. We're at 30 minutes. We almost have Rabadons on Falson. You've got level 15 on Terra, going to be third augmented item here in just a second. Level 16, there it is. Going to be now, I believe, the Divine Sunder coming in for Izanator. I mean, it just feels like this series is closing in fast on Absolute Zero. Considering that they had such a good early game, it is a little disappointing, but that's the power of Virtue Gaming Grit's comp.
Yeah, it just feels like there's nothing Absolute Zero can do at this point. And, you know, they put up a much better fight than game one. They had a much better draft. They had a lot of good plays. They had a lot of good comebacks with Virtue Gaming. It just feels like Frozen Inferno got such good baits off his Chrono Shift so many times. And, you know, some overextension, some slight misplays as Virtue Gaming just going to run over the base. It gets the call of the Forge God, not even going to engage off of it, looking to take down tower. Arctic gets the pull over onto Frozen Inferno, but Nguyen goes forward. Cataclysm on Izanator, has the flash away. There comes a big knock-up from Made in China. Arctic is going to put the Death Realm onto Falson, but Falson's able to just use his Zanyas and survive in there. Now there goes Made in China in the backline, going to go down to Shifty. There goes Nguyen. The next one going in one by one. VG takes them all down. Aopol on the side looking for the damage, does not have it, has to flash away. And now Falson TPing into the bot lane with literally 1 HP. I don't know if that's the best idea, my friend. He is actually going to survive somehow. That was legal. I don't know how. And now Aopol going to be the next target. Arcane Shift, Mystic Shot, Knock Up, Auto Attack. Goodbye. Arctic here looking for anything he can find at all. Has no flash. All of VG are 1 HP, but can any of them actually die? They're so slippery, so hard to kill. Final Spark hits no one to pull. Hits no one, and now Arctic going to go down to a sad death. Lily is all that's left. The only line. The low econ mid laner is not going to be able to find the kills as Virtue Gaming Grit picks up the series win.
2-0 win for Virtue Gaming Grit. It was, history repeats itself for Absolute Zero. They do not make a single Game 3 in the group stage of Runeterra Academy. Unfortunately, they fall. But, like you said, a very admirable effort. They definitely could have taken that game away from Grit, made this a Game 3 situation, but there's just way too many misplays in the mid game that resulted in them falling apart. You have to look back at that teleport from Arctic. That teleport from Arctic in the mid game, going towards the mid lane to initiate a team fight that didn't work out, ends up resulting in Virtue Gaming Grit denying the Cloud Soul, denying a chance for Baron to get taken, and Absolute Zero from that point onward were just never in a commanding state in the game, and it results in Grit winning it at around 32-33 minutes.
Yeah, awesome played game from Grit to take the series. We do have an interview for today. We have Falson with us, the mid laner for Virtue Gaming Grit. Falson, how are you doing?
I'm doing pretty well after smashing some kids. Yeah, it's pretty good.
Well, congratulations on your win. This did guarantee you guys a qualification for playoffs. Coming in, I mean, I assume you guys were aware this was kind of a make or break game. If you lost a series, there's a chance you don't even make playoffs. What was your guys' mentality coming into the game?
I don't think we thought about much the fact that we could not make playoff. It was pretty sure. I think we were all pretty sure we're going to make it. We just entered some games, and honestly, we should have been 7-0 in this league. But hey, we entered someone. We gave some win. Make some people be higher seed. It doesn't matter. I think it's pretty free for the rest as well. So we're gonna get it.
Yeah, I mean, Falson, great performance on both games. I think flawless in game 1 on the Anivia, and was able to scale in really, really good into game 2. I mean, looking at your champion pool, it feels like there's nothing you can't do. You have high CS, you have high kill participation, you have high, just impact in the game. What's something that you definitely feel is a strength for you as you move into the playoffs, and maybe something that you're looking to improve upon as a team as you move into those?
I think for myself, one of my strengths is when I play solo queue, I don't play to climb or other shit. I just play to practice champion, be better at CSing, trying to practice the thing that makes me succeed in the league. So yeah, I think that I'm concentrating more on improving towards like team play, and I do a lot of like 10 minutes just farming lane, just being the highest CS possible. Because I know like in this elo, you don't need to be good. You just need to be like less worse than the other guy. So yeah, and for the team, I think how we're gonna improve is just by getting to like play with each other. You know, we just played with their ADC for the first time this week. We played like one scrim before this game, and it went way better than what happened before. So yeah, I think we're gonna improve pretty fast since we have a new lineup and everybody's getting along well.
Cool. I mean, hopping back to game one, you know, we saw Absolute Zero pull out some new picks that we weren't expecting. You know, we do our own scouting of the teams, and Absolute Zero pulling out these picks that, you know, they've never picked before. Were you guys like surprised at all? Does it change your game plan? How did you feel? You know, especially like something like the Twitch and the Morgana going mid.
Yeah, I mean, I think they just picked like 3 losing lanes. So, I don't know what they were expecting. It didn't change much except the fact that like we knew it was going to be a free win, especially with our comp. Our comp was super turbo. We just win with these champs. So yeah, and it just made us more confident. Like these type of draft, I don't see how you pick Twitch into Ashe. Like it's Twitch is not a good laner. I don't know, man. They just picked losing lane and lost, so it makes sense.
Yeah, looking at your group stage as a whole, you guys were, you know, one of the teams that played a lot. Like 4 out of your 6 matches previous to this one ended in a 2-1 win or lose. You guys definitely did a lot better. Red side, you end group stage 7-2 on red side. In your opinion, what makes red side, I think, better for you as a team comparatively to blue?
I'm not sure if it makes us better. I think it just happens like that. Like sometimes we end, sometimes we play.
Fair enough.
I'm not sure it matters that much because we're not getting like super value from counter picks.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
For some reason though, you're winning on red side. So just keep that in mind.
Yeah, we'll keep going at it.
Looking forward into playoffs, you know, starting next week, you guys will probably, you know, be 2nd or 3rd seed depending on how the other games go out tonight in your group. I'm not sure if you follow any of the other teams in the league, but are there any teams specifically that you're looking forward to facing? Anything you're cheering on? Anyone that, you know, maybe you don't like and you want to beat? What are you looking forward to?
I'm gonna be honest. I didn't watch a single game outside of our team, so I have no idea what the other teams are playing. I don't really care because I don't think it matters. I think if we play good, we'll win. So yeah, I'm not concentrating. I know some people from the other teams because I played against them in some leagues. So yeah, so like some Curry GG, these type of guys. I would like to play against them again. I would like to smash them again. So yeah, I just wanna beat everybody. So yeah.
Exactly. Well, I mean, looking at the playoffs at Runeterra Academy, you guys are Virtue Gaming's, not rising stars, but you guys are the glimmer of hope to be able to win with Ambition out in their quarterfinals matchup. Like, if you guys end up winning here in the entirety of this one, like any idea that you guys are going to do with your prize money?
I have no idea. I don't even know how the prize money works in this org. So. I don't know, man. I'll probably buy weed. That's the most likely thing I would do with it. So.
So all the prize money just goes to Izzo. Everything from every team, no matter what, it just goes straight to Izzo. He deserves all of it. No, but seriously though, congratulations on the win. You know, we were all super tense coming into this. It was super hype for us. I know you were confident, but we were nervous. So do you have anything you'd like to shout out before we call it for the night?
Yeah, shout out to my boy Ezo making the team. I like this boy. I like this team. So yeah, shout out to my captain Ezo. He's a great leader. Let's go. All right.
Well, thank you so much, Falso, for hopping on the interview. Congratulations once again. Thank you, Moose, for hopping on the cast with me tonight. Great job, as always. And thank you to all of our viewers popping, around 17, 18 viewers tonight. Always a pleasure seeing the chat popping. Remember to follow us at Virtue Gaming Live on Twitch and at Virtue Gaming GG on Twitter. It's been a pleasure casting everyone tonight. Congratulations to Virtue Gaming Grit. And Absolute Zero still has a very high chance of making playoffs. So good luck to them in playoffs, most likely. And if not, they will be playing a tiebreaker regardless, so they're not out. So good luck to them, and thank you guys for being a great sport. To everyone, have a great night. Moose, is there anything you want to shout out before we head out?
No, I mean, on behalf of everybody here at Virtue Gaming, I mean, you for not only being production, but also play-by-play, and the viewers and myself. I mean, definitely a ton of fun. If you guys are enjoying the content, of course, I got to plug myself. Please follow me at Moosecaster on Twitter if you guys want to know of where and when I am casting. You guys see me on Virtue Gaming's channel, I think, quite often here throughout the winter splits, and you'll probably see me again later on.
All right. Well, thank you so much, guys. And once again, have a great night.